we had this idea for this literary event. How do we create visual poetry that you read, that you see and read, and find an engaging way to do that? And what we ended up doing was this whole event and this art gallery, and we printed posters, and we have prints, and we did the whole thing, right? It was this big, beautiful expression of, yo, you can do poetry this way. But we did it with the homies. We funded it with the homies. We worked in our communities. We sourced from the designers that believed in our mission. We sourced from poets that were actively doing things. So if you're not already a part of a community, you need to be a part of a community. That's kind of step one to the whole thing of DIY. But take advantage of your community and get started. Because what then you can do is you can start doing, you can level up. So first you're doing this little thing, like the first little thing we decided to do was a podcast, right? Like, how do we do this podcast thing? And then it levels up, and then it levels up, and then you start expanding on the ideas, and then you start creating new ideas. So like David, I'll pitch it to you right now, but this was our idea, right? For how do we do a literary thing? How do we do a visual poetry thing? And honestly, the answer to DIY is just get it done and keep that PMA, you know what I'm saying? Like, positive mental attitude, and keep your nose to the grindstone and just get it done. That's it.
All right, so that takes us to what we were saying earlier, how we're trying to remix and better present each of these pillars of poetry. The Poetry Clash assesses poetry competition, and the Poetry Art Gallery, like we were talking about earlier, addresses our take on literary poetry. Now, in a chapbook, typically you'll have like 12 to 24 poems, so a couple dozen poems at most. In this one, I believe we have 12 poems. And in this short chapbook, the idea was, okay, what's something that might work out well in both social media as well as in the chapbook? Like, when we look at Instagram, when we think about Instagram, how do people want to consume the content on Instagram? Visually, right? Like, Instagram was originally a visual medium. It's unlike Twitter, which is more text-based. Instagram is video and static, or what we call static or still photography, static images. So knowing that, it's like, okay, how do we take literary poetry and transform it in a way that is engaging on a visual platform like Instagram? And the idea is to make poetry visuals, which is not a new thing. Visual poems do exist, blackout poems and all that does exist. But with the technology that we have with Photoshop, with all these free as well as free design software such as Canva, such as Pixlr, or whatever have you, we can not only show and showcase poetry in this way, but we can also figure out how to teach it. But first, we had to figure out how to do it ourselves. So this was our experiment. I had other designer friends contribute in these designs, and I did like 4 or 5 of them because we couldn't get all the designers. But in this, I'll just show you like what some of the poems look like. Like here, for example, is a poem, and it's and for the audio only listeners, it's an amazing illustration, this dark inky blue illustration of a woman drowning underwater, and she has this orange glow around her in the line art, and in the side is the poetry talking about a person, the sensation of drowning and the anxiety that feels. And we wanted to try getting different. Just like there are people who have different styles and tastes in music and different styles and tastes in poetry, we also wanted different styles in art as well. So if you don't like this style, even though it's an amazing style that's illustrated by the great Steve Isaacs, we have other styles. Like we have like a more photo-based style that's very Barbara Kruger-esque, if you're familiar with the designer. We have this more abstract geometric style that a lot of people loved as posters. And yeah, this goes on and on. Just check us out on our Instagram, and you'll probably find it at Penclique, PENCLIQUE. But not only does that present poetry, literary poetry, in this very interesting visual way, but what we were also doing on our side, on the back end, was try to show poets that not only is this possible, but this is also a separate avenue of income that you can make. With these designs, you can make merch. Part of this was part of our charity is not the right word. Part of our donation to the poets who participated in this was to give them the full high res print files. We gave them like full TIFF files, full PDF files, so that if they wanted to, they can print out full 24 by 36-inch posters. They could put it on T-shirts. They could put it on mini postcards, whatever they wanted to do. We
also supplied them with hard copies of those as well.
Yeah, we supplied them with a couple of dozen prints as well. And what we're trying to show is that, like, look, not only is this an interesting way to show your poetry, showcase your poetry, but imagine, right? Like, let's say I go to an open mic and I say, hey, I got a chat book. It's all text. I got a chat book. You never heard of me. You never heard me perform my poetry. You never read my poetry. You don't even know my Instagram handle. But I step up to you at an open mic and say, hey, buy my poetry book, $12. It's like, am I gonna risk $12 for buying what potentially might be trash? Or if somebody says, hey, I have these poetry prints. I have these prints of my poems, really interesting designs, and each one is like $5. I'm selling one poem postcard for $5. I will probably buy what I can see, like, oh, this is a really cool print. I could use this postcard. I would rather buy this one $5 poem piece than this $13 chapbook, and it probably costs less. Like the whole how much you print versus how much you can sell, like that probably also, is bangerang too. That probably also like slaps. So yeah, like through this like a literary form and visual form of design and poetry, we're trying to show poets, look, like the possibilities are endless. Like I guess I'll reveal this because like we've been talking about it for a while, and you could pretty much extrapolate where this idea comes from. Is that like before Corona, we were planning to do a whole poetry clothing line of stuff of this. So we were planning to take poems and design it in like really cool styles of shirts and post and of shirts and prints. It was going to be so dope. It was going to be so tight, and we're still going to do it, but it's gonna be delayed till at least next year. And we did that with a couple of these poems, like with this poem, which was done by Jardel Rodriguez, designed by my cousin Christian Barker. It's a super dope what we call postmodern brutalist style of design, which is very reminiscent of like the Euro drum and bass kind of style of flyers. It looks so tight. So we put it on a long sleeve black tee with the title of the poem called Hazmat Casuals on one of the words on each side of the sleeves. It looks hella tight. And to think that is a poem, it's like, come on, that you can create such dope stuff with poetry on shirts in fashion. Come on, bro. This is like the type of design and media you can do with poetry is endless. And independent, that's what we're experimenting with, and that's what we're trying to present to the people, that like you can present poetry, make money with poetry, and be entertained by poetry in all these different ways and styles that you never even thought of.
Yeah, that's good. Kelsey, what's on your mind, Kelsey?
I'm just digesting, like it's so much, and it's so cool. I don't know. It's so cool, and I guess you're right, but I also want to say you're not completely right, at least in some audiences. So I'm just curious, how you would adapt in different audiences. So specifically, I'm thinking of my own poetry community where we jump on chapbooks at our open mics. Like someone says they have a chapbook, we're like, oh, we're all there. Don't know who you are, but we're going to support you. And I've had people come with prints and people don't go to the print. So I'm wondering what else, like if you're in a community where they're not hyped about a chapbook and they're not hyped about a print, what other type of medium would you offer? I know you have all these ideas, so like what physical thing would you offer other than like the things you talk about?
We have a bunch of
what we're speaking to is strength and diversity, right? So with music, with TV shows, like you don't like this style of music, you might like this type, you might like that type, you might like that type. There are a lot of people who, one, don't carry cash, so wouldn't even be able to buy one in the first place, and second, and second, aren't into print in the first place, right? So like, I'm not really into this, I'm really into that. Well, what else can you offer? What else can you buy? Then that comes to like the different media types, right? So be it like YouTube content or Twitch content, if you're like really heavy into that style of media, or if you do your poems on TikTok and Instagram, like Chris, I know you had like a TikTok, like a poet that's really heavy on TikTok, who can then leverage their viewership into brand deals. Like that's a whole thing as well, right? So the avenues for income with poetry, it's there. And what we're showing with Prince and the chapbook is like those are new styles in new ways of presenting in these older forms, right? So chapbooks have always existed, but our style of chapbook, not too many like that out there, right? Like you are currently wearing like a shirt that is by a poet, right? Yep,
Yeah.
I am poetry right there. It's for the audio only listeners. It's an awesome blue jumper, as our British cousins would say, or a blue long sleeve sweater, crew neck with a white handwritten text that says "I am poetry." Right, tight. So you know that there is a space for poetry in clothing and fashion, but done in the way that we do our design as well. It's like. Fair to say that I don't think a lot of poets have seen anything to that regard. I'm very thankful that I have the skill sets that I do to be able to produce this, and at the same time, I do feel like so let me be honest. Like when I was talking to the poets who participate in the Poetry Art Gallery, I came to a realization. It's like this style, like this tier of design. With our poets who don't know much about design, it's not sustainable at that time. It's not very sustainable because either designers and poets need to collaborate with each other, but then like, you know, how do the splits, like how does the money split? Or designers learn how to do poetry, or poets learn how to design. But there are kids out there who can draw, who can do design on their phones and write poetry. And maybe they have not seen a lot of examples where those two art forms combine. But by being exposed to that, like if you didn't know that existed, then you probably wouldn't think to do it. Unless you just one day went on a DMT trip. It's like, oh wow, here's an idea, right? But if you see more people do it, if you see more people do these awesome visuals with poems, then that might inspire a new generation of poets who are good at those two things to start doing it. And then that's how it snowballs, right? It's like we're trying to inspire these folks. Like when you look at all these different new forms of entertainment, when you look at battle rap, for example, battle rap used to be this freestyle only thing, but now it's turned into this entire professional league. And it has inspired an entire new generation of rappers who specifically train for battle rap specifically only. Not I'm going to prove my pen by doing my music and my battling. No, these people are battle focused and they're super dope at this one niche skill, right? Just like that, hopefully by showing the diversity of our content and our media production, that we're inspiring a new generation set of poets who are super dope at these specific things.